So I was watching the first episode of the second season of Kekkai Sensen a couple days ago when I was struck with a strange realization. That realization was that I was genuinely enjoying myself. The thing is, I don't really like Kekkai Sensen that much. When I first watched its first season, I had remained unentertained and bored for much of its run. That isn't to say that there was nothing that I liked about it. In fact, if you were to ask me what one of my favorite settings in fiction is, I probably would have at least mentioned Hellsalem's Lot in passing. I love the cosmopolitan feel of the streets, the bizarre and unsettling nature of its inhabitants, and the insane chaos that happens seemingly randomly and how everyone just kind of rolls with it. Then, you may ask, if I like the setting so much, why did I not enjoy it as a whole? That would be because of its plot. Now, I must clarify, I'm not talking about what happens in the plot, the message that it promotes, or even the way that it is told. I am talking about the fact that it existed at all. The plot that was there wasn't bad or anything, I just found it incredibly uninteresting. I really didn't care about Mary and William Macbeth, as evidenced by the fact that I had to look up their names in order to remember what they were. I didn't care that William was actually being controlled by some other force, nor did I really care that Mary sorta kinda died at the end of the 40-minute final episode. So why did I enjoy the first episode of the second season so much? There was almost no trace of plot. All of it consisted of wild screaming running through the cityscape and contained this amazing Sakuga cut from Yutaka Nakamura. It was basically everything about the show that I liked, wrapped up in a wonderfully directed and scored episode. Was there any mention to how Mary would return to Leo's world? No. Was there any long drawn-out explanation by Femt about how this was meant to create chaos within this world? No. Was there really any plot? No. So why is it that story is held in such a regard as the most important thing about a show? Why is I watch anime for the plot viewed as a defense for the act of watching anime instead of just being an opinion of the speaker's preferred aspect of said medium? And Kekkai Sensen isn't even the only show that suffers from this problem. A few months ago when I was watching Yamada-Kun and the Seven Witches, I found myself completely interested in its first half, only to be bored and disappointed by its conclusion. The moment the show began to develop a real dramatic narrative was the moment I lost interest. Bungo Stray Dogs suffers the same problem, and so does Anohana. But all of this isn't just me being a person that generally doesn't like or understand heavily plot-driven shows. Steins Gate is among my favorite shows and is renowned for its intricate and tightly woven plot, and so is Gurren Lagann, which is well known for the fact that its plot is so insanely climactic that its plot reaches the logical extreme of the hero's journey in a way that is basically impossible to surpass. So why does plot seem bad for some shows, but also good for others? Well, the short answer is that plot is only good if it matches the appeal of the show that contains it. To me, Kekkai Sensen's main appeal had been its setting. So when a plot was introduced and its main focus was not exploring its extremely interesting setting that had been established, I was immediately put off from the show. However, I was still willing to stay and see if the city would come into play as a larger role in the story, and that the plot was more of just a background thing or a tool for showing off more of the city. So when it became apparent that this was not the case, I quickly lost interest. Yamada-Kun's premise of transferring powers via kissing had been by far the thing that had drawn me the most towards the show. All the subtle character development of Yamada and Shiraishi had been a nice bonus, but for me, that was little more than just window dressing. Therefore, when about halfway through the show suddenly stops exploring the applications of these powers and how the fact they were transferred by kissing impacted the way that they could be used, and suddenly I was in this long drawn-out love story with a bunch of characters that I didn't know, and where all of Yamada's friends didn't remember him, I found myself disillusioned to the point that I didn't even care when Yamada and Shiraishi got together in the end. Furthermore, as a logical counterpoint to the notion that plot is only good when it matches the appeal of its show, this must also mean that a lack of plot that matches the appeal of the show can also be a good thing. For an example, look no farther than Tamako Market. Tamako Market in no way, shape, or form was focused on telling a compelling and dramatic story. It was focused on letting the viewer experience life vicariously through and with the characters of the shopping district. However, none of this is to say that a show can't make a shift from one appeal to another. All it has to do is be successful enough in selling this new appeal of the show. Take Angel Beats for example. It starts off as this all-out comedy about a team of uniquely crazy rebels fighting against what they believe to be essentially God himself, only to become a journey of feels and emotional revelations. Such a drastic shift in themes and tone could easily have been disorienting and off-putting, yet the show was able to sell this new premise to me hard enough that I was able to get invested in this new show as well. So, is plot bad? It certainly isn't inherently bad, yet this doesn't mean that having a plot is inherently good either. Just because a show has a plot doesn't make it somehow better than a show that does not. When people criticize shows like Tamako Market and movies like Sword of the Stranger for having weak or non-existent plots, they seem to me to be missing the forest for the trees. To treat plot as a necessary part of a story is just plain counterintuitive when it comes to shows that simply aren't even trying to have one in the first place. So the next time you criticize a show for its plot, think about the reason that you are doing so. Is it because it actually detracted from the story that it was from?
Or if you're simply doing so because you have it in your mind that every show should have a good plot. Thanks for watching the video. I'll keep this outro short. I just want to thank everyone for the continued support and growth of this channel. And hopefully the next video will be out soon. Or ever.